book. The subtitle is Your Faith Isn't Meant to Be Safe. Pastor Antonucci is the founder and lead pastor of Verve, V-E-R-V-E, which is a church on the Las Vegas Strip. Pastor, welcome to the program. Can we call you Pastor? Do we call you Vinny? What do we call you?
Vince is great. Vince is great. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you. I'm Tim with Ed. Vince, tell us about your church there.
Yeah, we started 3 years ago, and we're actually just south of the Vegas Strip. But we started this church because, you know, when you look at the life of Jesus, you see that he tended to go to the darkest places. You know, he said he came to be God's light, and so he would, you know, when he went to Jerusalem, he went to the pool where the sick people hung out. When he went to Matthew's house for a party, you know, a tax collector's house, and he went to Zacchaeus' house. He always seemed to go to the darkest places where maybe sin was more prevalent or thought to be, and he was there to be God's light in the darkness. And so there's just virtually no churches anywhere near the Vegas Strip, which is, you know, one of the darkest places in America, one of the places that prides itself on sin. And so 3 years ago, we started a church here just to try to reach out to people who are far from God and maybe don't think they like church, but really need Jesus. And it's been exciting. It's a challenge, but it's been really exciting these last 3 years.
Now, Vince, you, according to your book, and I want to make sure I get this right, so I'll let you tell the story, but you had been a part of, I don't remember off the top of my head if you started the church in Virginia or you were a part of it, but it was a very successful work, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, before you went out to Las Vegas.
Yeah, we started a church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I started that back in 1998, and we grew to, you know, about 1,000 people, saw a ton of people come to Christ, and we just always been real focused on trying to reach people that maybe aren't being reached by other churches. My background is I came from a completely non-Christian background. My mother's Jewish. My father was a professional poker player in Las Vegas, and so they didn't take me to church much. And so I became a Christian during college and just had a real heart for people who, you know, had never gone to church or had maybe walked away from church. And so Virginia Beach, we really focused on that and reached a lot of people who were far from God and loved it there, thought we'd stay there forever. But God just led us out here to Las Vegas, and so to our surprise. But it's been a very, very fun adventure with him.
So how did your friends and the other people who went to church with you in Virginia and family members, whatever, what did they tell you when you said, well, we're heading for the Las Vegas Strip? I realize you're not right on it, but that's where we're going. We're not going to the suburbs of Las Vegas. We are going right into the heart of the darkness. Everybody was really up for that. Gave you the 2 thumbs up. Is that what happened?
Well, it was interesting. The people in my church in Virginia, when I made the announcement, they cheered. I think not because they wanted to get rid of me, but they were just so many people who had been far from God and had come to know Jesus in our church. And I just had a ton of people. I had the same conversation repeatedly of people saying, man, there's going to be more people like me in Las Vegas than Virginia Beach. Go get them, man. You know, they need Jesus. We're so glad. We're so proud of you. But I had some friends in Las Vegas, some pastor friends in Las Vegas, and the feedback I got from all of them was, if you go into the suburbs of Las Vegas, man, it is fertile ground, and you will have more success than you ever had in Virginia. And you know, churches are growing out way out in the suburbs. But if you go on or anywhere near the Strip, it will not work. I had people say, not only will you not be able to grow a successful, you know, church, healthy church, but you won't even be able to start the church. Like, you'll never even get to your first service because if you go anywhere near the Strip. But so the idea of the book of being a renegade, that God calls us to go against the norms and beyond normal. You know, there's a smart, wise way of living, and sometimes God calls us to be fools for Christ, you know, and to do things that seem impossible, but we do them in faith and see what God does. And so that's what we did.
We're talking to Pastor Vince. How do you pronounce it, Vince?
Antonucci.
Antonucci, Antonucci. The book is called Renegade, Your Faith Isn't Meant to Be Safe, and it's published. Who's the publisher there?
Baker Books.
Yeah. How do you? So You can get the copy of the book at your local Christian bookstore or on all the usual online places to visit. So you've been out there 4 years?
Yes. Yep.
So you're originally from Virginia?
No, I grew up kind of moving all over the place, mostly New Jersey, upstate New York, Florida.
Yeah. Running from whom?
Yeah, exactly. Well, honestly, that is exactly what was happening. My father he got in trouble a lot. He was a poker player / con man, and so we were running from whoever was after him at the time. And so, yeah, that is exactly why we moved that much.
Maybe I missed it. How'd you come to know the Lord again?
When I was a sophomore in college, I saw a preacher on TV say something that I thought was absurd, and I had never spent a day in church, never touched a Bible, but what he said led me to get a Bible and start reading it, not because I was interested in learning about it, but because I just thought what he said was so ridiculous. I wanted to see like what he was talking about, and started reading and got into kind of a decision where I thought I could read and disprove the Bible, and spent the next months studying the Bible and trying to find evidence to invalidate it, and ended up just falling in love with Jesus and finding all kinds of evidence that showed the Bible was actually true, and decided to follow Jesus. And still, as far as I know, I'd never met a Christian, which is kind of funny. But so yeah, that was it.
Well, so do you are a lot of your people folks who work in the gambling industry, or there?
Yeah, we get a pretty good mix, but we do we have people who work in the shows in Las Vegas, some of the cirque shows and all that kind of stuff, and we have people who do work in the casinos, whether they're waitresses or tip boss or a blackjack dealer, and then we have like any church, we have teachers and businessmen and stay-at-home moms and all those kind of people too.
At one time, Las Vegas was the fastest growing city in America.
Yeah,
I think.
From 1977 to 2007, I think almost every year it was the fastest growing city. They actually grew from 200,000 people in 1977 to 2 million in 2007.
Why is that? Why? Yeah. What happened? Why did it grow so fast?
I think it's just a kind of a boom city where people move here for really weird reasons. It's not just I had a job, or I knew some family out there, but people move here for reasons I don't understand. They think it's a good place to start over, or to get away from something, and or to get rich quick or whatever. And so people just kept moving here, and so it just kind of became a like a circular kind of thing where that created construction, and so it became like the construction mecca between building casinos and building neighborhoods and homes, and so it just grew like crazy until the economy went south, and it has not grown much since then.
Vince, you part 3 of your book is called The Renegade Life. Your book is called Renegade, and then in part 3 you go into the renegade life. What is we got about 10 minutes here left on the program. What's on your heart in this book? I mean, what are you really trying to challenge Christians with? Yeah.
So I became a Christian out of this completely non-Christian background, but the interesting thing is that I became a Christian by reading the Bible, and I'd never gone to church. As far as I know, I'd never met a Christian. I probably did, but no one ever identified themselves that way. And so I read voraciously read through the New Testament several times, and then went to church and started being Christians. And now I've been a pastor for about 18 years. And what I've seen is I think that a lot of us, and I'm prone to it as well, but we just kind of fall into a rut of just living a Christian life that is just, I think, not quite what Jesus had in mind. In the book I talk about, at the stores, they'll have the actual cereal brand, and then they always have like the imitation knockoff where the box looks the same, the color scheme is the same. Instead of Cocoa Puffs, it's Cocoa Poofs, and it'd be real easy to grab that box without even realizing that you didn't get the real thing, and then take it home and open it and eat it, and it's just a little off. And now I just met so many people, I think, who are like, man, I read about what's happening in the Bible, that when people followed Jesus, it didn't lead them to a safe life. It didn't lead them to just be better, more moral people. It led them to an adventure. People who followed Jesus were called to do things that were beyond themselves, that they would never do without faith in a very big God. It was daring and it was scary, but it was like the adventure of their life. And in this book, and that's kind of what I'm calling people to is, man, let's live the life that God has for us, the life that Jesus talks about, when he says, I've come to bring you full, abundant life. There's a one passage where it talks about Jesus was walking, and everyone who followed was astonished or afraid. And I just think that's the picture of the Christian life we get in the Bible, that it's this astonishing life because God's going to do bigger things than we could ever do on our own. And it's a life that induces a lot of fear because God calls us to things we can't do on our own. One of my favorite things about the book is that I give some real practical help for how to overcome fear, because I think so often that's what holds us back. God calls someone to something. Like you think in the Bible, where do we ever see God call someone to something and the person says, yeah, I could do that? It never happens. When God calls someone, it's always like, whoa, wrong person.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Classic example is Moses.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Go get. Yeah. Thought you talked to Aaron about this thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
so how do we overcome our fear so we can really live for God? And so there's some, I think, real practical help for how to overcome fear, so that when you find your calling, you can actually live it out.
Well, and in your book, you talk about discovering your calling. That's an important factor in living, which you have titled The Renegade Life. And I go back to what you just said. God rarely tells us everything he's going to do with us once we find that calling. It's almost a pattern in Scripture and experientially, any of us who have tried to answer that call to follow Christ, he tells you the next step a lot of times, and that's it. And if he were to tell you everything, if he were to tell Moses, there will be a time when you're, you have, Pharaoh's chasing you with chariots, you're going to be trapped against the Red Sea, that might have sure enough overwhelmed Moses. So talk a little bit about discovering your calling as being an important step in this life.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Again, I think so many of us just kind of fall into, we're trying to be good people, and we're trying to live life, with faith. And so we read our Bibles, and we pray, and we go to church, and that's all great. But I think God has something bigger for us, and we have to, part of it is figuring out, well, what is God calling me to? And so there's several chapters in the book that kind of help people, give them some direction in discovering their calling. And so some kind of tests almost we can apply to our life, like what is it that makes us angry? What are the injustices in the world? There's some injustices that I think stink, but it doesn't get my passion going. And then there's some that I can't even think about because it makes me so mad that, that exists in the world. And that might be a clue to where God's calling me. Another one might be where's my deep gladness? What kind of work do I do for God, or how can I volunteer for God in a way that it's like, man, I wish I could just do it all week long. You wouldn't have to pay me. I just love it. Also looking at our past, at some of the themes in our life, some of the hurts in our life, and realizing that God often uses our past to help us do ministry in the future. One of the fun ways, it's kind of a little fun way of maybe discovering part of your calling, an aspect of your calling, is to look at your 3 favorite movies. What are your 3 favorite movies? And is there a discernible theme in those movies? And maybe that theme is just kind of a hint to what it is that gets your kind of passionate juices going. And so if you realize, man, my 3 favorite movies are all about underdogs who could never, who no one thought could win but did, or they're always about lonely people who get connected into community, or, just so look for that theme. And so there's just a bunch of help in the book to discover your calling and to avoid some of the pitfalls. I think sometimes when we do discover our calling, we get in trouble because